I am going to talk to y'all today about steroid dosing on the cortisol pump. So I have it attached to me right now. I'm using it. The site is in my stomach, which I am not going to show to y'all. I've been on this method of treatment for a little bit over 2 years, so I want to start out by stating that this is a very nice method of treatment. I love it. It's also a very different way of thinking about how to treat adrenal insufficiency and how to manage it. So there is quite a bit of a learning curve. One of the best things about the cortisol pump is it allows you 24-hour steroid coverage. With oral meds, you take it and they exit your system in 6 to 8 hours, and then you have to take the next dose. This is a constant subcutaneous stream of medicine throughout the day that I program to different basal rates. So I'll give you some of the pros of it. Once I got my rates pretty locked in and kind of normalized, so many random things that I was told, no, that doesn't relate to your adrenal insufficiency. They resolve themselves. I had horrible case of POTS. That's an acronym for something. I stutter over what that actual word is, so just Google POTS for medically. Basically, anytime I stood up, my blood pressure would plummet and my heart rate would skyrocket. I tell people my record. I stood up once and my blood pressure fell to 67/46 and my heart rate was over 120 beats per minute. I about fell over and texted a coworker going, yeah, no, not making it to that meeting that you want me to be at. But so my POTS was very unstable. And for me, POTS was a secondary diagnosis due to the cortisol dosage not closely matching the circadian rhythm. Got put on this, my POTS stabilized, and now it only flares if I'm getting sick. Another thing, I would get constant headaches, miserable headaches. I was just living with them. Turns out, cortisol related. Or, oh my gosh, chest pains. It would mimic heart attacks. And I would just sit there and I knew I wasn't having a heart attack, but it's like I can't breathe, I can't move, and I would just hope that it would pass. Cortisol. And occasionally I will still get those chest pains, but that shows me that my adrenal insufficiency is flaring. And so many things that doctors said, no, this does not relate to your adrenal insufficiency. Turns out if you give your body what it needs and you have your cortisol more closely mimic the circadian rhythm or mimic what a healthy body does, hey, your body starts working better. It has been a night and day difference based off of me before the pump and me after the pump. Now, before the pump, I was still striving to be clearly alive. Let's not forget about that. But after the pump, I didn't even realize that I was not sleeping. It was almost like I was slipping into a coma every single night, and it wasn't a restful sleep. Turns out your body needs some sort of overnight steroid coverage so that you can enter that restful sleep. This makes it easy. It was impossibly difficult for me to wake up in the morning. My family kind of describes it as like there was no light in my eyes. I was just this glazed over zombie until I would take my morning meds, wait 30 to 45 minutes or an hour for them to kick in, and then I could be alive again. Don't have to with this. So there is a lot of benefits to this, and I love this method of treatment. There are also some drawbacks. It's kind of annoying. Oh, hey, there's my olive thief. It's kind of annoying to be attached to an external adrenal gland at all times. I was getting dressed the other day and this slipped out of my hand and it fell off and my site ripped right out, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, need to clean up some blood and change my site again. This particular pump, it is not waterproof. So I am very fearful anytime it rains or anytime I'm around water, because I've actually broken one of these before due to moisture damage. And it's also not necessarily a cheap method of treatment. insurance is still, it's a battle to get them to cover things, and it very much depends on what your insurance will provide. But so it's kind of expensive and it's cost prohibitive to some. It's also, like I said, it's a very different way, or treatment, a different way of thinking. It's like I can set any of my different basal rates. I have, for this pump, it has an accuracy of 0.05 milligrams per hour. Some of the newer pumps, they have even a finer tune. So you can really fine tune your medicine, and that can scare doctors, because this is just a machine. It is not a magical solution. It is not a quick fix thing. It's taken me about 2 years to get my pump rates somewhat normalized, and this little machine is only as good as the program pump rates. So if you are not careful, you can really mess yourself up on this. You can either give yourself too much medicine or too little medicine. The goal is for you to have medicine, have it be as close as normal to a healthy human or working adrenal glands. And this will require blood work. So, like, if y'all have seen my theoretical steroid curve plotter, I have a new update for the cortisol pump, and it's very useful to plot your rates and just see what it looks like. And then what I do, we're working on an update for this, but at the moment I graph it by hand. But I have some of these graphs here. I'll take the basal rates and then I'll correlate it with the blood work. So I had a blood drawn here, I had a blood drawn here, I had a blood drawn here, and blood drawn here. And they'll match up, but then I can put levels to it. Like, so for this example, this is about 40 milligrams of cortisol a day. It's 38.97 according to the chart. And it had a 8 a.m. blood draw of morning cortisol blood draw of 16.7, and then a 6 p.m. cortisol blood draw of 5.2. So that's pretty good. But by getting the physical blood draws, you can then put numbers on the axes. Or we have another example on this chart. This person peaks a little bit later. Like they peak around 9, 10 a.m. And I feel better if I peak around like 7 to 8 a.m. When I say peak, that's the highest level of cortisol in the bloodstream. But they're on 32.85 milligrams of cortisol a day. And you can see this person kind of clears cortisol a little bit slower, so it holds on in their system longer. My theoretical steroid curve plotter, there's a little bit of drop between the theory and the actual blood work. That is why I do a lot of disclosure saying this is theoretical. You need actual blood work or cortisol blood draws to be able to correlate between theory and practice. But I've got a couple other examples. It does provide a useful starting point, because what you want it to do. Let's go back to this one. What you want it to do is peak early in the morning and then slowly dip down to low, or not. It will never be zero, but drop down to really low. And this is the time period where you're going to be falling asleep. And it starts ramping up around midnight, 1, 2 a.m. And that's what's preparing your body to face the day. That's what's allowing you to wake up refreshed and not glazed over. And so you want to find your basal rates that allow you to survive a normal day. No bullocing. Bullocing is being able to give yourself a little bit extra, but no bullocing and no stress dosing. The rates that I am on now, you know what, I can handle unexpected meetings, or I can handle long conversations or difficult engineering problems. I can wake up and go through the majority of the day and not need anything extra, and that's good. Now, that being said, if something really unexpected comes up, I am able to bolus or give myself a little bit extra. I had a filling the other day, and it's like, you know what? Let me give myself like 1 milligram extra hydrocortisol, because I hate dentists. And so I sat there and I was like, wait, before you start, let me let me set a bolus. I'm going to do a dual wave bolus, so I'm going to give myself a little bit of medicine now, and then a little bit of extra medicine over the hour, which would be while the dentist is working in my mouth, and the rest of the day I was fine. And that's one of the best benefits of this method of treatment. You can adjust very quickly. You don't really have to wait for pills to kick in or for it to go through your digestive tract. You can just say, oh, hey, I need to give myself a little bit more now. And then, oh, when you're sick, a healthy human kind of, they don't follow the typical circadian rhythm. Like normal cortisol rates, they peak around 7 to 9 a.m. and then they slowly drop off over the day, and around night they drop off very low. Well, when you're sick, they actually stay elevated and pretty flat baseline. I have 3 different basal rate pattern in my pump. I have my normal day-to-day, I have my I'm kind of sick rates, and basically what that does is that just increases my nighttime meds or my overnight steroid coverage about 20%. And then I have the, oh my gosh, she is super sick, she needs help. And that's a little bit less than triple of the hydrocortisol, but instead of like ramping up early in the morning and then dipping down, it kind of stays higher all day long. And this has kept me out of the hospital so many times, probably at least 4. And then it's also helped me recover quicker, because basically what it's doing is it's allowing me to have functioning adrenal glands. They're external and I program them, but they're more functioning than the pills. And just because I'm on this medicine, that doesn't mean that I don't still sometimes supplement with oral hydrocortisol or dexamethasone or even prednisone. Like if I'm going on a long run, I don't necessarily want to push all that medicine through my site, so I will take a bump dose of like 5 to 10 milligrams oral hydrocortisol. Basically, this treatment is it's a mix of everything, like mix of oral meds, mix of the pump. Sometimes I give myself subcutaneous solucortif injections. Sometimes I give myself intramuscular solucortif injections. It basically comes down to recognizing the symptoms of low cortisol or adrenal insufficiency as fast as possible and correcting sooner, because if you realize that you're starting to fade or you're starting to feel bad up front, normally it takes less medicine to get yourself back on track than if you yourself slide too far. So like for example, it's like, oh, I'm starting to get that dreaded low cortisol migraine. I'm getting dizzy, I'm getting shaking, my lower back is hurting, I can't really see around me. Let me give myself a small bolus. Whereas in the past, it's like, oh no, I'm fine. Next thing you know, I'm collapsed on the floor and I'm getting 100 milligrams emergency injection. Well, a 1 milligram bolus of solucortif is a lot less medicine than a 100 milligram solucortif injection. I state all that to say it's a learning process. I love this method of treatment. It's also very difficult and at times extremely frustrating. So for those of y'all that are on the pump, use my theoretical steroid curve plotter for the pump and plot that with your blood work. If you want to forward that information on to me, I'm using that to make my tool better. For those of you that are not on the pump but you want it, research, and look for that open door. You need one willing doctor, you need a lot of stubbornness, and you need a lot of impatience. Everyone's pumping journey is unique, so what I did and what my rates are, they won't apply to you. So it's a very individualized treatment, and you have to want it, you have to want to fight for it, and you have to be willing to manage it. Because in one way it's a lot simpler than pills. I set my site and then I'm able to basically forget about it for 2 to 3 days. but in another way it's a lot more difficult than pills because there's so much more you can control. So it's definitely not easy, but in my mind it's worth it. And I would also like to finish to say I am no way, shape, or form a medical doctor. Please do not consider any of this medical advice. For everything, consult with your own doctor or your own medical team. This is just my personal experience on the cortisol pump. So thanks for watching, and tune in next month for the next month's topic. Bye, y'all.